This is KBS World Radio, the overseas service of the Korean Broadcasting System, coming to you from Seoul, the capital of the Republic of Korea. We now begin today's English broadcast on KBS World Radio. From Seoul, Korea, KBS World Radio News starts right now. On today's broadcast, North Korea test fires another ballistic missile in an apparent protest to the UN Security Council meeting about the regime's nuclear threats. South Korean presidential contenders stage a heated discussion on job creation in their fifth TV debate just about 10 days before the election. And the nation's press freedom remains to be partly free, ranked at the 66th for the 7th year. This is KBS World Radio News. I'm Bruce Harris. North Korea remained defiant despite efforts by the UN Security Council to show a united front at a special meeting to discuss the North's nuclear program. Pyongyang fired another ballistic missile Saturday, the third this month. Our Kim In-kyung has more.
Pyongyang fired another ballistic missile only hours after the UN Security Council held a special meeting to rein in the North's nuclear program. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the North fired a ballistic missile northeast from near the Bukchang region in South Pyongan province at around 5:30 Saturday morning. The missile exploded minutes after the launch, but it is estimated to have flown to an altitude of up to 71 kilometers. South Korean and U.S. military authorities are analyzing the type of missile fired and its flight distance. The two authorities had been closely monitoring the North as it had been expected to test-fire a missile or conduct a nuclear test to commemorate the anniversary of the Korean People's Army this month. The missile launch was the 6th this year and the 3rd this month. The South Korean military is maintaining its full readiness posture while closely keeping an eye on the possibility of additional provocations by the North. South Korea immediately condemned the missile launch and warned that the North will face strong punitive measures if it continues to reject denuclearization. The UNSC meeting was convened Friday to tighten adherence to existing sanctions against the North and suggest new ones. Kim In-kyung, KBS World Radio News.
The United Nations Security Council held a special meeting of its member states and South Korea to discuss evolving North Korean nuclear and missile threats. The four ministers at the Security Council agreed to the gravity of the North Korea problem, but failed to find common ground on how to solve the issue. Kim Bum-soo tells us more.
Should North Korea conduct a sixth nuclear test or launch an ICBM, it will be a game changer for all of us. If we do not respond to North Korea...
South Korea's top diplomat Yoon Byung-se said it's time to contain North Korea as his U.S. and Japanese counterparts stressed how serious the situation has become. But the Council is still divided.
Failing to act now on the most pressing security issue in the world may bring catastrophic consequences.
At the session held in New York on Friday, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson argued that all options for responding to further provocation must remain on the table.
Diplomatic and financial levers of power will be backed up by a willingness to counteract North Korean aggression with military action, if necessary. We much prefer a negotiated solution to this problem, but we are committed to defending ourselves and our allies against North Korean aggression.
He urged countries to suspend or downgrade diplomatic ties with Pyongyang, specifically asking them to stop inviting North Korean guest workers and impose bans on North Korean coal. The top U.S. envoy noted China accounted for 90% of North Korea's foreign trade and pressed Beijing to use its leverage over the regime. But Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi countered that the blame game won't help to resolve the situation.
The point I want to make is that the most urgent task now is to stop the DPRK's nuclear and missile development. To achieve this, it is necessary to put aside the debate over who should take a first step and stop arguing who is right and who is wrong.
While claiming that his country does not hold the key to solve the problem, the Chinese foreign minister stressed that the use of force will only lead to bigger disasters. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned North Korea against further aggravating the situation.
We need to act now to prevent conflict and achieve sustainable peace.
The UN chief said that North Korea must refrain from further testing and comply with the relevant Security Council resolutions, a request North Korea already rejected in effect with its missile launch Saturday morning. Kim Bong-soo, KBS World Radio News.
Japan's Kyodo News reports the U.S. has drafted stronger sanctions against North Korea to be submitted to the UN Security Council in the event of additional nuclear or ballistic missile tests. Kyodo said the Trump administration sent the draft to South Korea and Japan through diplomatic means before Pyongyang's missile test early Saturday. The strongest action in the draft is said to be a ban on oil exports to the north. South Korea's top diplomat has responded to comments by U.S. President Donald Trump that Seoul should pay for the deployment of U.S. missile defense system THAAD. According to a high-level South Korean diplomat on Saturday, Yoon met U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson prior to a UN Security Council meeting in New York on Friday. Tillerson, according to the diplomat, said he will deliver Yoon's remarks to the relevant department. With just 11 days until the presidential election, the top 5 candidates met at broadcaster NBC Friday for a debate on their economic policies. The Democratic Party's Moon Jae-in placed his top priority on job creation, saying unemployment is the root cause of low growth, income polarization, the low birth rate, and the aging society. The People's Party candidate Ahn Cheol-soo called for transforming the economy to be led by small and medium-sized businesses instead of massive conglomerates. That, he said, would create higher-quality jobs. Hong Joon-pyo of the Liberty Korea Party promised to revive the working class. He pledged 50% tax cuts for cigarettes and petroleum products and to reduce household telecommunication fees by 40% by creating another carrier. But Party candidate Yoo Sung-min called for reforming the nation's conglomerates to turn them into global corporate leaders. And the candidate for the Justice Party, Shim Song-jung, proposed charging big businesses with the social cost of increasing minimum income and reduced fair work hours. A Washington-based human rights group has again rated South Korea's press freedom as only partly free for 7 consecutive years. In a report on global press freedom released Friday, Freedom House ranked South Korea at 66th among 199 countries. South Korea scored 34 points, falling a point from last year, but its ranking remained unchanged. South Korea was downgraded to partly free status in 2011 with a ranking of 70th place. The Press Freedom Index amasses 23 indicators on a scale of 0 to 100. A lower score indicates a freer press. The media environment is divided into 3 groups: free, partly free, and not free. North Korea received a press freedom score of 98 points, ranking it at 198th. Samsung Electronics has returned to the top of the global smartphone market even ahead of the release of its Galaxy S8. According to data from industry tracker IDC, Samsung sold around 7.9 million smartphones in the first quarter for a market share of 22.8%. Arch-rival Apple followed with 14.9%. Apple held the top market share in the fourth quarter of last year. And that's the news from KBS World Radio's News Center in Seoul. I'm Bruce Harrison. You can also catch our news from our website at world.kbs.co.kr.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Saturday Mailbag Show, KBS Listeners Lounge, coming to you from Seoul, the capital of South Korea.
It's Saturday, April 29th, 2017, and as always, we've got the latest listeners' letters, messages, and reports we receive from you coming right up.
So please stay tuned. I'm Lawrence Taylor.
And I'm Kim Ji-eun. We'll be right back. Hi, Lawrence.
Hi, Jian. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm happy that it is Saturday.
Right.
And the weather is absolutely fantastic. Of course, a so-called Golden Week is coming up here in Korea too, right?
That's right. As I'm sure many of our listeners are aware by now, next Monday is Labor Day, Wednesday is Buddha's birthday, and the Friday of the same week is Children's Day. So many Koreans are opting to take Tuesday and Thursday off work as well to enjoy a week-long vacation.
Yeah, I read yesterday in an article that a lot of people are flocking out of the country already. The airport was jam-packed.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah. Of course, the show must go on, so we'll be here. But still, any special plans for the weekend or the week for you, Lawrence?
Next weekend, I'm going to Yeosu, which is should be nice. It's along the south coast of Korea, so there's lots of nice beaches and islands to see as well. What about you?
Nothing big. I haven't had much time to go shopping lately, and I honestly have nothing to wear now that the weather's changed. So I'm planning on getting some shopping done at some point. But otherwise, I'll probably just find some ways to enjoy the beautiful weather in a relatively less crowded Seoul City.
Right. Where do you usually go shopping?
Well, for everyday clothes, I usually like to shop at Itaewon or at malls like IFC, which is pretty close to work, or COEX, which is closer to where I live. But I'm actually thinking maybe I should go to Dongdaemun later today.
Is there a big sale going on?
I actually don't know. I probably should look it up, but I just want to go there because I haven't been there in ages, for one thing, and also because the Lotus Lantern Festival celebrating Buddha's birthday will be taking place nearby tonight, so I might be able to catch a glimpse of it.
That's a great idea, actually. That would be a perfect event for anyone visiting Seoul. What time does it start?
I heard it starts at 6 p.m. near Dongdaemun Gate and lasts till about 9:30 p.m., so that should be plenty of time for me to drop by, I guess. Have you ever seen the Lantern Parade before?
Yes, I have. I went a couple of years ago and I really enjoyed it. I remember being surprised at how big of some of them were. How about you?
Years ago. I think it was like 2006, so more than a decade ago now, yeah. I even got to make a couple of lanterns that time too. But more than anything, I would totally recommend the whole event to any photographers or Instagrammers. The lanterns do look quite gorgeous both in real life and in photos.
I also heard that there will be some more festivities after the parade today. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, that part I've only heard of too, and I'm not sure even if it was there a decade ago, but it seems that there will be an outdoor folk music party at Jonggak intersection. Not sure what that's going to sound like or even look like, but about 300,000 people are expected to take part, they say.
Will you be going to that too?
Let's say it'll depend on how many bags I'll be carrying after the shopping. Well, I've got something else to concentrate on for the time being, though, don't I? Or don't we, actually? We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with this week's letters and reports, so don't go away.
You're listening to KBS Listeners Lounge on KBS World Radio. It's time now for us to take a look at the listeners' letters and reception reports. As usual, we've received some lovely handwritten, typed up and emailed comments, letters and reception reports from you, our listeners. And we'll share some of those with you on this program.
We'll start with the reception log we received from our monitor in Bangladesh. Listener Abdul Manan sent us his logs dated March 13th through the 22nd. On these days, Abdul tuned into our broadcast using his Grundig YB400 receiver with a telescopic antenna, always from 1600 to 1700 hours UTC, but on either 9.640 megahertz or on 9.515 megahertz on alternating days. Overall, it seems the listening conditions conditions were more or less the same for these two frequencies in his region, with the SINPO ratings ranging from as low as 3 across the board to a high of 4 across the board. For example, on March 21st, he rated our 9.515 megahertz broadcast 34444 and wrote slight interference. And on the next day, on March 22nd, he gave the 9.640 megahertz broadcast a 4 across the board rating and wrote excellent reception condition in the remarks section.
Abdul also added in the comments section, greetings from Bangladesh. I hope you are well. I am very happy to receive your excellent letter with 3 verification cards. These QSL cards are excellent. I like these cards very much. KBS World Radio's reception condition is not good, however. Sometimes we cannot pick up a signal with our radio. Nonetheless, I try to listen to your programs. I want to know about Vidya's life in Korea. All the best, Abdul.
Well, thank you, Abdul, for always trying to hear us and also for sending us your logs. And I'm glad to hear that you liked our QSL cards a lot. I mean, they are quite popular and
right.
They are quite nice looking too. As for the village life in Korea, well, I can't say that I personally know much about the village life, but from what I could gather, much of the younger generation have already moved to the country's large metropolitan urban centers a long time ago already. And the vast majority of the agricultural or fishing villages that remain are said to be mostly occupied by smaller numbers of senior citizens. But there's also a growing number of immigrants who come to Korea to find work at such farming and fishing villages. So hopefully these villages will become more lively once again in the near future. And of course, there's been a growing trend of people in urban cores moving back to these smaller villages too. So hopefully it won't be long before these villages become more lively once again. Hope that answered your question.
Up next, we have a couple of reports from our monitor, Brian D. Webb in New Zealand. Brian used a Dagon DE1103 portable receiver with a 1 meter long whip antenna to listen to us on April 3rd and 5th on 9.515 megahertz. The conditions weren't that great though. On the 3rd, he tuned into the frequency from 1645 to 1658 hours UTC, and he rated the SINPO 35422 with the overall merit somewhere between a 2 and a 3. He noted that the weather had been wet and around 11 degrees Celsius, and he wrote, there was very deep, moderate QSB, or fading, which was surging throughout the broadcasts, but it was the best reception on this frequency for some time in English at 1645 hours UTC.
On April 5th, he tuned into 9.515 megahertz once again from 1632 UTC when the SINPO stood at 35433. But unfortunately, the condition deteriorated as time went by, and it dropped to 25422 around 1649 UTC, and finally to 15311 at 1654 hours UTC, at which point he stopped listening. In the comments, he said weather was wet, experiencing the tail end of Cyclone Debbie, which hit Australia earlier in the week. It is currently around 14 degrees Celsius. Reception, a very slight improvement to the April 3rd recession levels. Propagation is affecting high-frequency broadcasts at this time, he said. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for the reports, and I hope the weather is much nicer now. Cyclone sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, it does, right. The next letter we have is from our UK monitor, Grant Skinner. He opened his letter with some interesting facts about the month of April, and here's what he wrote. Dear KBS World Radio, nature and romance have given us the month of April and may have done so in one of 2 ways. In the Northern Hemisphere, it is a time when the buds of flowers and trees begin to open up to blossom. Highlighting this delicate stage of natural growth, the month was identified with it. April is derived from the Latin aperio, meaning I open. On the other hand, recognizing the significant part played by the reproductive forces in this month, the Greek may have dedicated it to Aphrodite, their goddess of fertility, beauty, and life. April is perhaps merely a shortened form of her name.
Well, Grant actually has been sending us interesting information about the etymology of the names of the months every month this year, and I've since become a big fan. It makes me wait for his letters even more than usual now. And personally, I think I like the first theory with the Latin word aperio better than the second theory linked to Aphrodite, partly because aperio just sounds like a magic spell from Harry Potter to me. What about you? Which one would you choose?
Yeah, I think Apereo sounds good. I actually I remember I studied Latin in school, so this has taken me back a long, long way now.
I see. But yeah, seriously, Apereo sounds like it's going to open some doors in Harry Potter movies. Well, thank you for that, Grant. And fortunately, though, it doesn't seem like the listening conditions in his area has improved much, even in early April. Like Brian, Grant also tuned into us on April 3rd on 9.515 megahertz at 1600 hours UTC, but the SINPO was only rated 15151. He used a Grundig YB400 receiver with an extendable rod antenna, and here's what he said of the source of interference. He wrote, "The broadcast quality was degraded by electrical noise that sounded like crackles, which came at regular intervals. There were people talking in the background, but later on I was able to hear a lot more." Then he gave us the details of what he could hear up until 1650 UTC.
It looks like the listening conditions were even worse on April 6th. First of all, he could not hear us on 15.575 megahertz at 1300 hours UTC at all, and he asked, "It has not been working for ages. Are you broadcasting to North America anymore?"
Of course, we certainly are. We'll share some of the reports on the frequency from our U.S. listeners in a little bit.
As for 9.515 megahertz on April 6th, Grant rated the SINPO 15311 at 1636 hours UTC and said the source of interference had been crackles, which deadened the broadcast a lot. Nonetheless, he also commented, "As the weather is getting clearer and the temperature is going up, I can hear some of your broadcasts." So that's some positive news from Grant.
Of course, this is just a mild improvement from what we've heard from Grant throughout the winter months, but it is still a welcome improvement nonetheless, I think. Thank you so much once again for your reports, as well as your patience with the signal, as always, Grant. Oh, and also thank you for the adorable postcard you sent us with the picture of a duckling and a dandelion. I think it's a very, very adorable picture, and we've added it to our collection since.
Now moving on to some of the reports on the frequency 15.575 megahertz we received recently. Listener John from Florida wrote in an email on April 15th, "Dear KBS World Radio staff, I am pleased to report that I am finally able to receive KBS World Radio on 15.575 megahertz here at my location near Orlando, Florida. Though the signal is weak and fluttery, I was able to hear the KBS World Radio interval signal as well as a news bulletin regarding the recent turmoil in the region. I hope signals continue to improve with time, and if they do, I look forward to listening daily. I hope all of you at KBS stay safe during these difficult times. I don't support the US government's push for war, and I hope a diplomatic solution for North Korea can be reached. It seems as though the US government has little regard for the millions of South Koreans put in danger by their saber rattling. Good luck and take care, John in Central Florida." Well, first of all, thanks for your support, John. I actually went to Orlando a few years ago to go to Disney World, and I remember, as a pale Englishman, being unable to cope with the heat in the summer. I'm sure the weather is nice there now, though, as it's the spring, and I'm sure, of course, that John is used to the summer heat there, too.
Of course, I was just gasping right next to you because I've wanted to go to Disney World for so long, and really? I haven't been. Yeah, lucky John, living in Central Florida. Well, thank you, John, for the message. We're glad that you can hear us somewhat, although I guess the signal still has lots of room for improvement. We look forward to hearing from you again as you plan to listen to us every day from now on, right? We also received an online report on the frequency from listener Marcus Kulertz from Germany. He used an RTL SDR receiver with a mini whip antenna to listen to us on 15.575 megahertz on April 18th from 1340 to 1400 hours UTC. And he rated the SINPO 41112. This makes me wonder if it's possible that conditions on the frequency may have improved for Grant in England as well, since he's written us the letter. But of course, the frequency is targeting North America, as he mentioned, so maybe I shouldn't get my hopes up too much. That being said, it looks like one of our Europe-bound broadcasts was recently heard in fair condition in China. Listener Eric Zhao left us an online report after hearing us on 11.810 megahertz, which is a frequency we haven't had all that much luck with lately.
According to his report, Eric used a Texan S2000 receiver with a 10-meter long wire antenna to listen to us on April 26th. Between 2240 hours and 2300 hours UTC. He rated the SINPO 44333, so it's overall fair, and wrote, I heard your male announcer speaking English from 2240 hours UTC. He was presenting a program with traditional Korean songs. At 22:59 hours UTC, your female announcer mentioned your KBS World Radio Station ID and website address. Your signal was fairly strong. Despite some noise and fading, the speech was very clear. I love the nice program and beautiful country. I am an international radio enthusiast, age 37 in China. I am very interested in DXing and collecting radio schedules, QSL cards and pennants. If possible, please also send me the latest printed program schedule and other listening materials. Thank you very much for your report, Eric.
Well, thank you for your report. I believe this is my first time receiving a report from you, so welcome to the show. We'll make sure that you get your QSL cards and our program schedule very soon. Up next, we'll share a report and letter from our monitor, Sumya Bhattacharjee of India. I'll share some parts of his letter first. He wrote, "Firstly, thanks to Emily for being such a great host for the KBS English department, and I wish her all the very best in her future endeavors. She will be missed very much, especially on the Saturday Listener Lounge shows, and a very warm welcome to Lawrence. I have heard him in recent Soul Calling episodes, and he is a really good host, so all the very best to him as well."
Thank you very much for your kind words. I just want to assure everyone that I didn't add that bit about me being a good host into the letter. Continuing on with his letter, he wrote, I am pleased to send you a reception report after some time. I have continued to regularly listen to KBS World Radio, and thank you so much for all the great programs. But I wish to recall some recently heard programs that I liked very much. The Korea Travelogue episode on Korea's train stations was quite interesting. I was sad to learn that many train stations are being closed due to the reducing population in different parts of Korea. But the initiatives taken to revive and turn these stations into major tourist destinations are really appreciated. Thanks also for the interesting stories and topics on the Soul Calling segment. That's one of my all-time favorite programs. I am also enjoying the Sunday music program and the news segment. Thanks for doing some great coverage of important issues happening in South Korea and regarding those on North Korea. I would appreciate more analytical discussions whenever possible in the future episodes.
Sumya's reception report was on 9.880 megahertz using a Texan PL660 SSB digital receiver with a telescopic rod antenna and a 20 feet long external random long wire antenna. He had listened to us on the frequency on April 8th from 1400 to 1500 hours UTC, and he rated the SINPO 45544, so it sounded very good. And on April 18th, he tuned in for an hour from 1400 hour UTC once again and gave the broadcast a rating of 4 across the board. He also commented, "Recently I am receiving the 1400 UTC plus transmission on 9.880 megahertz very well at my end. I feel this signal quality is much better than the previous 31 meter band frequencies. I have been constantly observing this frequency, and except for some obvious reception drops on certain days, this is a very good frequency at my end. I want to highlight that China Radio International and Cambodian also is present on this frequency and sometimes makes faint co-channel interference. So far, I am not much bothered by this station, but this is to be noted." Well, noted indeed. Thank you very much for that, Sumya. We actually have been getting some very positive reviews on this newly introduced frequency, and we're thrilled to add your report to the list. But we actually broadcast from 1400 to 1600 hours UTC on this particular frequency. It's a 2-hour-long block, and other monitors and listeners have told us that from 1500 hour UTC and on, we're often drowned out by China Radio International. I believe at that time it is either Nepali language or Chinese language, I forget. But we are curious if that's the case for you too, Sumya. If you get a chance to tune into 9.880 megahertz sometime between 1500 and 1600 hours UTC, could you let us know? Because we're hoping that there's another reason that he stopped listening at 1500
right,
other than us being drowned out. But again, of course, thank you very much for your wonderful letter and the detailed report.
That's all we have for you on this week's KBS Listeners Lounge. We hope you enjoyed the show. This has been Lawrence Taylor.
And this has been Kim Ji-in. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for tuning in to KBS World Radio. KBS World Radio is Korea's flagship international broadcaster, airing in 11 different languages. The English service of KBS World Radio broadcasts 2 hours a day for various media outlets, including shortwave radio, satellite radio, and internet. Visit our website at world.kbs.co.kr, where you can stream all of our content on our internet radio Wink by tuning into various channels like Wink 24 and Wink Music. Wink is also available on mobile if you download our on-air app onto your mobile phone. Visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/EnglishKBS or follow us on Twitter at KBS World Radio. You can also email us at english@kbs.co.kr.